Hi everyone, long time no see. I'm actually going to do a voiceover tutorial for the first time ever. So I got a request in a Discord server I'm a part of to walk through my process for soft shading. Funny thing is, I actually haven't worked in this style for a long time. It's been several years now since I've done a lined artwork like this. But I used to do this type of style all the time, so I figured, I could probably give some insight. Anyway, so I decided to draw Link from Breath of the Wild. The Legend of Zelda series has been one of my favorites for a long time, and Breath of the Wild, when it came out, was no exception. I also am a big fan of open world games, so this was, almost the perfect game for me, because it blended my two favorite things. Anyway, as you can see, I did my best to contain my lines and make sure that it was easy to select everything using the magic wand tool, and I filled in the base color for his skin. And basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how you can quickly get some basic shading down. So I spent a while trying to find a brush that I wanted in this program. I'm using Clip Studio Paint. I ended up using a soft brush. Let's see. Yep, I found a very soft brush. As you can see, it's not quite an airbrush, but it is pretty close, especially if you use a really low pressure. So then I found the color I wanted for the base shading, and decided that my light source was coming from the upper right side, and used that as a baseline of where to put the shadow. As you can see right now, it's very loose, very soft, more of a gradient than anything. And I included shading on that side of his face because I figured that the light wouldn't have hit there very much. And then I went back with a slightly darker color, and this is where I start doing some refining work. I chose a watercolor brush, so it is a bit harder than the other brush that I used. But not, it's still a soft brush, because remember, we are going for a soft shaded look. So I started adding some shading to the nose, which is probably going to receive most of the shading, because it's an object on the face that sticks out the most. I shaded the upper lip because it's facing down. So you can obviously go in a much more detailed style or much less detailed. This is actually way less detailed than I typically work in. If you know anything about my work, you would know that I usually work in a painted style. But this is what I used to do when a few years ago. This was my primary style, was working with clean lines and soft shaded. So I guess this was kind of what got me first into painting, even though I wasn't doing a painted style like I am now. I've always liked the soft shaded look. Okay, see here I'm adding some shading underneath the chin. I'm refining all the shadows, under the clothing and, in the crevices, like, for example, the tendons in his neck and the collarbone. Softening some stuff here and there. So the biggest tip with this, again, after using a gradient, it's very important to vary the pressure of the brush, so that, in certain areas the shading is very subtle, because we do want it to look three-dimensional, but we don't want anything to look too harsh. Okay, so see, I'm adding some shading around the eyes, as you can see, around the eyes and under the hair, cleaning up some shading here or there, and around the nose. So I've been planning to get back into YouTube. Not that I was really ever that active on the platform yet, but I had been planning on it, for a while. But yeah, I guess just things got in the way, and specifically I've been planning a lot of future projects, and really exciting ones. More future comic projects, and also planning the future of my current comic project. Information in the info box below if you don't know or already follow my comic. But yeah, on top of that, I have some pretty cool collaborations lined up here on YouTube. I'm gonna get together with some other art friends and other just really other cool artists that I know, and we're gonna talk about some cool topics, in a podcast of sorts, just to sit down and chat and talk about, monetization and, responding to comments and how we motivate ourselves and all kinds of interesting things. And, probably I'm going to do some more tutorials, so if you've got any suggestions, go ahead and drop them down below. I would be glad to hear from you. So now I've started to add some highlights. I add some highlights to the cheeks, over here, the edge of the neck where the light is hitting it, the chin, the lips, around the eyes, just refining some lighting around the nose. Then I always end up focusing on the nose, again, because the nose, in a way, is kind of the closest thing to you on the face, because it sticks out forward. So I want to make it look particularly three-dimensional by adding a lot of shading and highlight. Okay, and here I'm adding some, I guess you could say some color to his face. So some blush, that's, adding some color to his lips, making his face a little bit pinker. So the important part with this is that there are certain key areas on the face that tend to have thinner skin, which means that more blood vessels show through the skin, and that involves, the cheeks, obviously, the lips, and the nose, around the eyes, and the ears. But of course, you do also just want to add some redness to other parts of the skin to make the person look more alive. But yeah, right here I added in a little bit more highlight to the cheek because I felt like after adding the blush, some of it was lost. Okay, and that should, for the most part, I'm done with the skin. You can always add way more detail than I added here. I won't lie, I got a little lazy. I was kind of rushing to do this. I had to cook dinner at the time and didn't want to spend more time than I had to. So here I'm doing, filling in the coloring for the hair, the base color, on a whole new layer. So I did something where I locked I did a clipping mask for a folder, and so everything I'm doing in this folder can't go outside of those bounds. So that makes my job a lot easier when coloring things in like the hair. Okay. And then also after I fill in all the base colors for the hair, I'm just going to lock the transparency of that layer, and that'll make our job way easier than it ever would have been. See here, I can go pretty loosely around the edges, just filling in this color. If you've done your lines well, and if you've done a very good clipping mask, then this process should be pretty quick. Filling in base colors is honestly one of my least favorite things to do. It's very tedious, and with my comic, it's probably, outside of the sketch, is probably what takes the longest for me. Okay, but anyway, now so we have the base color of the hair filled in. I'm cleaning up the edges a little bit. And I'm going to lock the transparency, go back to that very big soft brush. Oh, that's right. I guess I decided to do the eyes first. So yeah, I did the eyes first, I don't know, because I figured I'd just finish the face up before moving on to the hair. But yeah, so here I'm filling in the eye color, or I should say the eye whites first. I end up getting indecisive about the color. Here, I changed it. Now I'm gonna add some shading really quick to the eyes. Okay, so that's the shadows that show the eyelashes and the eyelids are covering some of it and casting a shadow. Then I'm filling in the base color for his irises. Okay, got a nice blue going there. And then I shade the eye. I was very simple with the eyes, so I can add so much detail to eyes. I simplified it significantly here. Yeah, so there's some shading. I'm adding the highlight in the direction of where the light is coming from. So to shade in the eyes, I exclusively used the harder brush, mostly because it's such a small area, and I did want the eyes to look somewhat detailed, even if it is a much simpler style than I typically do. But yeah, I used the watercolor brush again and just made it really tiny to add these details. Okay, now I'm adding in the pupils, you know. I actually didn't choose a black. I feel like black often just makes images really flat. So you can use black, but I tend to try to use it very sparingly, if at all. But yeah, so even for his pupils, I made them a really dark purpley blue because I just didn't want them to look too harsh, you know, or too flat. Yeah, I filled in the pupils. And let's see, in a layer, oh, there we go, I moved to the eyebrows first, I guess. So yeah, I moved to the eyebrows. You know, his eyebrows are actually, I don't know if you've noticed, Link's eyebrows are darker than his hair. So I used a brown color, even though he's, you know, a bit of a dirty blonde color. And I filled in his eyebrows and his eyelashes, and because I am a glutton for punishment, I guess I decided to ink his individual eyelashes instead of, you know, simplifying it and just doing a black line to show his eyeline. So yeah, so I have to shade in all of his eyelashes. Yeah, shaded his eyelashes in with the same color as the eyebrows because, you know, Link is traditionally depicted with, you know, completely black eyelashes, so I figured, you know, I'd at least want them to be dark brown. It's funny, actually, when I was doing the sketch and the line art for this drawing, I realized how much the main character, one of the main characters of my webcomic, resembles Link. So I've actually gotten the comment before, but I didn't really think it was true. But yeah, I think it's just mainly the androgyny of the character, and since my character is also androgynous, kind of like Link, there are some slight resemblances that I can no longer deny. Okay, I locked the transparency to make my life a little bit easier. Now I'm adding a little bit of highlight to the eyebrows just to make them look, you know, not so flat. I actually, one of my favorite things about Link's features are his gloriously thick eyebrows, especially because he is such an androgynous character. I think it's a lot of fun to see, you know, how extreme his expressions can get with, you know, such masculine eyebrows. That's just something I personally enjoy. So I actually I added in a layer above, I believe it was a dodge layer of some sort, and I used that dodge layer, which is above the line art layer and above the color layers, to add some highlights to his eyes, you know, to show where the direction of the light is coming from a little bit better. Here I am just adjusting that. Okay. And I believe finally now we're moving on to the hair. So I go back to that large, extremely soft brush, you know. You can use like an airbrush, like I said, or you can just, you know, use a very soft brush, which is what I did. So I added the gradient, and then I went in with the base color again, and I lowered the size of the brush in order to, you know, bring back some light into some areas I didn't think should be that dark. And now this is the important part. The hair is actually a little bit different from the skin because in a way you have to be a little bit more precise with it. As you can see, I'm using that watercolor brush again, which is again a little bit harder than the soft brush I used, but still, you know, a generally soft blendable brush. And I'm following the contour of a lot of the lines that I drew in and just generally trying to make it look like hair strands. So you do want to, this part, the hair, you do want, because it's a different material than the skin, you want it to look a little bit harsher, you know? Just, you know, separate strands and everything. So you see I do this for a while, adding dimension to the hair. Okay. Then I'm adding it to the little ponytail. And again, you can always go back and forth between the two colors. You can, if you feel like you've added too much of the dark color, you can, as I'm doing now, you can take the lighter color and add in some detail that way. And now I'm searching for a highlight color, so I'm just, looking through the colors to decide what I like. Now that I've found one, I'm going back. I'm using that really soft brush and adding like a strip of highlight here. This is very stylized. This isn't realistic at all. So if you're expecting, realism, then I would just recommend referencing real images, real people, real hair. But in this case, I'm going for a way more stylized look, and in order to simplify it, I just add those two strips there, and then used the harder brush in the smaller side to do basically the same thing I did with the shading, except for, reverse it with the highlight. One of the biggest things about soft shading that's probably going to come in handy is remembering that the size of the brush often can determine how blended or not blended something is. So if you feel like something is you want something to stand out more and to be a little bit more intense, then you can, make the brush smaller and, press down harder with your tablet pen. Okay, you can see the hair is basically done. Hair is basically done, so I'm going to go do the clothing. Okay, see now I'm filling in the base color for his clothes. Actually, I took the color from the base color from his eyes as well, because if you actually look at the reference material for Link, he is his blue tunic is pretty similar in color to his eyes, so I kind of wanted to just tie it all together cohesively with that. Okay, and in a layer slightly below that, I am filling in a like whitish color. Not using pure white. I barely ever use pure white or pure black, except for in really extreme cases, But for the most part, I try to use off-white and dark grays instead of black. And by dark grays, I mean like usually a cool or warm gray. Okay, I'm adding some shading here. Again, following the same process more or less as the skin and the hair. With fabric, you do want, you're trying to show the folds here using the shading. See, I'm showing the light source is coming from the upper right. And moving on to the shirt. I was very lazy here again. I went in with the gradient, added a few strokes here or there to, add some dimension. And then, in another layer, I just added the designs. Didn't do a very good job of it, if I'm being honest. But yeah, so he's got some really cool designs. One of these days I want to do a much more detailed fan art of Link from Breath of the Wild. I think it's one of their most creative Link designs. I mean, I enjoy the green tunic just like anybody else, but there's something really, I don't know, I guess culturally interesting about the blue tunic. There's a lot more going on with it, a lot more designs. There's just in general looks more creative, looks more inspired. See, I'm just doing some really basic stuff here to show the designs. Okay, so I'm grouping all these layers together. Oh, that's right, I still gotta add the design to the shirt. Okay, so the undershirt gets some designs here. I could have done a way better job with this if I wasn't pressed for time, about to make dinner and whatever, but here we go. Just threw these in. Okay, there. Now is when I group all the layers. I'm going to group all the layers so that I can add some final lighting effects to the edge where the lighting is hitting him. Since it is Breath of the Wild, and a lot of the game primarily takes place outside, that was a lot of the game developers' goal with it, was to get back to the roots of Zelda, where a lot of the game is exploration, and a lot of the game is being outside in the wilderness, like when you're a kid and you're camping. So I did want to show that through, even though I didn't do a background. I wanted to show that he was probably going to be in the sun somewhere, outside. Maybe having the wind blow across his hair, but... So yeah, so I grouped those layers, and in a dodge layer above, I went and I added, using a yellowish color to make it look like sunlight, I added some lighting to that side, to that right side where the light source is. And it adds a lot more detail, makes him look, you know, like, again, like he could be standing outside in the sun. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna do a close-up shot of the final artwork. And if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them below in the comments, or to message me on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you follow me on social media. I'm pretty much always checking my messages and trying to respond. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.